Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Shooting Rabbits in a Barrel, a podcast brought to you by Scarecrow Consultants. I am thrilled today to be joined by Richard Beasley. Hi, Richard. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Hello.
Good. Hello. Welcome. Welcome to the podcast. Richard, you and I met each other it must have been 2021. It was my first ever ASEC. I presented a paper and you came up to me afterwards and we had a very lovely conversation. And since then you have been a friendly face in the crowd at ASEC. But would you, for listeners who don't know you, would you like to give a little bit of an introduction about who you are?
Right. Hello, my name's Richard Beasley. I used to work for Rolls-Royce. I worked there for 38 years. And for about 20 of those years, I was in some form or other sort of chief of systems engineering capability. So the thing where I met Jessica, she was talking about making systems engineering the way they did engineering in her company, which was a statement I'd been using in Rolls-Royce for about 10 years at that point. So I saw common ground. Mm-hmm. I retired in 2 years ago in 2024, and I am a part-time consultant, and I am leading an INCOSE International working group on embedding systems engineering into organisations. Exciting.
That sounds great. You are, as well, sufficient to say you are a big name in the systems engineering scene. So so we're thrilled to have you, and with your wealth of experience as well. So I'm very excited then to hear what stories you have for us today. So to remind our listeners, we ask 2 questions on Shooting Rabbits. We ask, what story would you like to share with us today? And what valuable systems engineering lesson did you learn? So, Richard, what story would you like to share with us today?
I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about what happened when I was Master of Ceremonies at the INCOSE International Symposium when it was held in Edinburgh in 2016. I'm
very excited about this. We might even have... This might even be like another layer, because I think we have an episode with John about something that happened in Edinburgh. So This will be, we're slowly building this picture. Yes. Wonderful. Okay, I'm very excited to hear.
Right. So it might surprise some people who only see me at conferences, but I'm actually moderately introverted and quiet. But when they were holding the INCOSE Symposium in Edinburgh, I was president of the UK chapter of INCOSE, what's now IFC, but then it was INCOSE UK. And despite it being an international event run by the international bit of INCOSE, I was determined that the UK would be represented and people would know where they were. And it wasn't just some random event in some random city. Mm-hmm. It so happened Ian Gibson, a later president of INCOSE UK, well known to many in INCOSE, was the program manager and also a very near neighbour of mine. So we did a lot of beer-based planning in a local pub. And we really did prepare. I mean, Master of Ceremonies is a very interesting role, and I was determined to make it memorable. But you choose about one joke in 100, mm-hmm. because you've got to really work it, and big preparation. And that's, so effectively we were systems engineering the whole event, and I was systems engineering my role as Master of Ceremonies. And preparation is important, because you go from uncertainty, what do you want to do, to I've got a clear idea of what would be success, and then I've got a clear idea of the solution. So you've done a lot of planning, and one of the things that I think is always important in system engineering is a set of regular critical questions. Mm-hmm. Now, I've got sitting on my pinboard in front of me the critical questions from the Royal Academy of Engineering's work on engineering better care. I happen to be minorly involved in it. And one of them is a question says, what could go wrong? And we did a lot of that. We thought about lots of things that could go wrong. What happens if I was ill? What happens if the IT failed? We thought of lots and lots of things. We didn't think of, as happened on the first day, the first keynote speaker we discovered at 7 o'clock in the morning, when he's due to speak at 8:30, was profoundly deaf. So how are you going to do questions and answers? Now, nowadays, that wouldn't be a problem. Now, the last INCOSE International Conference I went to, all the questions were done via an app and just shown on a screen, and he would have read them. But in those days, you still have people going up to a microphone, asking their question, and the speaker answering, which doesn't work if you can't hear. So we had a discussion. He said, no, it's all right. If Richard, the master of ceremonies, if you repeat the questions, I will lip read you and I will answer them. And that will give you an opportunity for everyone to hear the question again as well. Mm-hmm. So great. Yeah, this is great mitigation. You've gone through it. My total panic of how am I going to do the first day dissipates, although I'll come back to that in my second bit of this story. So we start, and the questions come in. He gives a very good keynote speech. The questions come in. I repeat the first one, and the second one, and he said, "Stop! It's not working. I can't read your lips. They're too thin." Now, I challenge any listener to come up with MC's lips are too thin as a risk.
I mean, yeah. Well,
I don't know. And so my point is, system engineering is about improving the probability of success, but not. So this is answering what was the lesson. There will still be things that come out completely from the left field, but because we had prepared, everything else was in control at the time. Mm-hmm. I wasn't in a state of panic and everything falling about my ears, and therefore you could just focus on the one problem which came up. So you weren't drowned by the noise of avoidable problems.
Yeah.
So, I still find that very, very funny. A related incident at that event, I embarrassed almost to say I had walk-on music.
No, that's so good. I would have walk-on music. I would.
And I didn't have any choice in the walk-on music because it was to do with the theme of the conference that Ian Gibson had come up with. So my walk-on music was the introduction to Heroes by David Bowie, which happens to be one of my favourite songs anyway. So that was cool. And I had my opening little monologue ready. And also, that thing about, when you're talking to large audiences and you get nervous, they say, focus on your first sentence. And once you've got that out, So I had my first sentence written out on a cue card. I was all ready. I had, and because I was very nervous. I mean, it's 800 people. You've been, the big Edinburgh, big thing. There were 800 people in there. Mm-hmm. And I was terrified. 10 minutes before I went on, the stage manager said, do you want me to tell them you can't do it? Because it looked like I was about to throw up. And I said, I'll be fine in a minute. Another risk is, did you know that there needed to be a job of clearing unwanted people off the stage?
No. I mean, unless you're at the Oscars, but the music does that.
So we 15, 20 minutes, we said, right, we're starting in 15 minutes. We're all good. In those days, we still had the president of INCOSE and a couple of others and the keynote speaker sitting on the stage looking out rather than just getting called up. So quite why I never understood, but they did. So I walk on to my walk-on music. I've got my lapel mic on and everything, and it's all very cool, and I'm ready to go. And I notice a illustrious INCOSE member still on stage talking to the keynote speaker. So I walk over. I do remember I have a lapel mic on.
Yes.
So I put my hand over it.
Oh, no.
I tap him on the shoulder and say, I thought I told you to F off. Right? So this is good. I've covered, I've not, my first line hasn't been swearing at someone in public. I take off the lapel, I turn round, I'm now mid-stage, I'm nowhere near a lectern, and I just go, good morning, Edinburgh, my name's Richard Beasley, I'm in charge. Which came out...
What a statement!
Very, very aggressively, and therefore totally changed the entire tone of all 4 days worth of keynote MC activities that I prepared. I mean, it worked, but it was just that realization as I stood there and went, I've just changed the entire context because I've now become dominant, which wasn't. I was trying to be welcoming and and calm and casual and everything. And perhaps I am a naturally loud person, despite my innate shyness and quietness and introvertness. So again, that's that example of the preparation and the complete confidence I had in the material meant the tone could change without. It wasn't like I completely destroyed everything and had to do everything off the cuff. So I did find that people get very annoyed with me because I say everything's a system, and system scientists get annoyed. So I say it more often. But it's not everything is a system. Everything can be treated as a system, even, social things like being the master of ceremonies at a conference.
Absolutely.
So I will tell you another Richard Beasley physical accidents story. Last year in Sevilla, where they had the first international workshop outside America, I was asked to give a keynote introduction to the MBSE 2-day workshop, which is laughable in itself because I am a notorious non-MBSE practitioner. I'm an advocate. I'm totally in favour of it. But ask me to model anything and I will fail. And that was a hybrid event. So they'd given instructions that you were to stay at the lectern because of the fixed camera on you. Mm-hmm. But that's not my style. So I'm getting very enthusiastic at one bit, and I step to the left to point at the screen. And I'm saying, and I think this is the bit that's wrong. And then I take another step off the edge of the stage.
No! Oh!
So it's about a 5 foot.
Oh no! And at that critical moment. Okay, sorry, you froze a little bit. The last thing we heard is it's about a 5 foot drop.
And I do my Wile E. Coyote moment because I don't know I'm at the edge. I don't trip on me now. I don't. Are you back?
I think we're back. I had 5 foot off the stage, Wile E. Coyote moment. Don't realise. Yeah. I think we're good.
Yeah. Okay. So brief technical fault, but so I stepped to the side to point enthusiastically at an aspect on my slide, not realising the stage didn't extend across in front of the screen. So I stepped into space, had that Wile E. Coyote moment of trying to walk in air, and landed on my feet. So if I wasn't some say I never stopped talking, which I can believe. I've watched the video. Unfortunately, you can't see it because you just see an empty lectern, but you can hear me talking, and there's a brief bang, and the reaction of the audience, I was glad to say, was gasp laughter. Not laughter gasp. And it was one of those things, when you looked at it afterwards, it was terrifying because you go, if I hadn't have gone fully off the edge, if I'd just say caught the edge of the stage, I'd have tripped and fallen face first.
Yeah.
If I'd been 2 foot further forward, I would have stepped out over the steps onto the stage, which would have meant I probably wouldn't have landed, feet flat, and I would have tipped. And you get quite frightened afterwards when you think, if I'd landed face first from 5 foot up, I wouldn't be well.
No.
And it was so the next day, the conference organisers had put a large plant pot in the gap that I had walked through. And the thing was, I told them, and they said, well, we knew everyone was staying at the lectern because we told you to stay at the lectern. And I said, well, don't assume people are going to follow instructions. And there is a from the IS in Detroit, which I think was 2022. I presented a paper with Hazel Woodcock, the soon-to-be president of IFSI, and the video is hilarious because again, we were told to stay fixed to the camera, and I kept wandering off, and Hazel kept just reaching out and grabbing my lanyard or my sleeve and just slowly pulling me back. So that if that video is still available, that is hysterical watching.
Oh my!
But
goodness.
again, that is. Don't assume that good systems engineering prevents problems. It just, and you do need to remember the critical question: what could go wrong? Because of those two stories, I believe you could have recognized the danger of somebody walking away from the lectern and falling off the edge of the stage. That was real. There should have been a safety bar. But, Richard's lips are too thin for a deaf person to lip read. Well, I don't know. I mean, the only mitigation would have been, if we'd known about his deafness, we'd have put a laptop up by the microphone and got people to type their questions in.
Yes. Well, coming back to, thank you so much.
That's it. That'll do.
So thank you so much for sharing those stories. I think they're some of my favourites. So the overarching lesson then is what you've just said about, don't assume that things are not going to go wrong because you've just applied systems engineering. They're always going to be risk. You have to mitigate it as best you can. I also want to come back to this point about the lips, because a risk mitigating factor, or something you could have done to mitigate that risk rather, could have been you could have had lip fillers like the Kardashians or something. But would you have wanted to do that? And is that necessary? Like, is that really, matches the level of risk? So
yeah, I think that would have been a permanent change to mitigate a temporary thing. And certainly if you've done it in advance. Well, what if any of the keynote speakers are deaf and can't lip read? And who knows? I mean, until you get a deaf person actually trying to read your lips, who knows that the thinness of lips is an issue? Yeah. I mean, it clearly is. In retrospect, clearly obvious. But no, I don't think I mean, the other one, I thought you were going to suggest perhaps I could have just done a big bit of red lipstick.
Yeah.
Which, but again, that was one where we had to literally fix it on at the moment. So we ended up getting Alan Harding going to the lectern because there was a microphone there because he didn't have a lapel mic to repeat the questions. But that was bad in another way because he had chosen to wear a kilt in Edinburgh. So we're getting to see Alan Harding's legs, which wasn't that pleasant.
No disrespect, Alan.
Yeah. It was also quite a shock.
Shock. Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair. My goodness, the drama that goes on at these INCOSE events, that's a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah. And I will say in the IW one, I was sober at the time.
Okay, well. Fab. So some really good lessons and some really, sometimes we don't always, we have some, there's two things I think I want to put out. Sometimes the thing that we do to mitigate the risk is not actually addressing the real risk. You said, because, you could have had lip fillers, or you could have actually, if you'd known beforehand, you could have put other things in place. So finding that actual root issue that you're trying to solve, that feels very systems-y. And also, do you actually, is the mitigation for the risk actually worth it? Or actually, something like that. Wonderful. Richard, it's been an absolute joy to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Listeners, if you would like to also come and share your stories, maybe we can get other people who were at Edinburgh 2016. We can start to build this whole thing of all the different things that were going on. Yes. I believe while that was happening to you, I think, if I recall, John was getting locked out of his hotel rooms wrapped in naught but a curtain. So all sorts of things were going on at this time.
I mean, also that was when we launched Think Engineer, and John Holt read it live in front of the whole audience on the second day.
I would like to point out to listeners he was clothed at the time, I'm sure.
Yes. No, yeah. Yes. No, there was also the Sam Williams in Seattle, where she managed to lock herself out of her room with no clothes on.
Why is this happening to so many systems engineers? Okay, let's draw a line under this. Okay.
Let's stop.
Let's stop there. Richard, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Listeners, please get in touch at rabbits@scarecrowconsultants.co.uk if you'd like to come and share your stories. Richard, thank you so much. Hope to see you again soon.
Right.
Listeners, we'll see you next time.